Why hello there and welcome to this video. I'm sorry if I'm a little sniffly or whatever. I am recovering from being sick, so my voice might sound a little different or I might sound a little stuffy or something like that. That's just me recovering from being sick. But why hello there, I am back. I took a little break because I was starting to feel a little burned out putting out the show, and also like the anxiety of the upcoming election was kind of getting to me a little bit. So I just wanted to I was also going to go on a vacation, so like producing the show was going to be really hard since I was like going to be on vacation for a little bit and just like stuff, just stuff. So I decided hey, I'll take a couple weeks off. We're close to the election anyway. It's not like anything huge is going to happen that's really going to shake things up. Like, we're just going towards the election. Obviously, prior to my break, we were closely following on my political coverage show thing here. We were covering sort of like both campaigns in the run up to this election and sort of discussing, what are the differences between these two campaigns? What are they doing? How are their strategies working out for them and stuff like that? Since going on my little break or vacation or whatever you want to call it, a lot of stuff has happened. There's been a lot of news. There have been a lot of media appearances, a lot of stuff. So a lot of stuff has happened. And I don't think that I have the time to cover all of it because I have stuff that I want to cover that happened recently that, is already going to take up a bunch of time. And I only produce like 1 or 2 shows a week. So yeah, also I wanted to mention that I was doing 2 political shows a week. I might end up just doing 1 political show a week going forward. And then I'll probably try to do some transition content or some kind of personality or personal blog style content as well, once a week, so that I have a little bit of variety here on my channel. I don't know if I'll stick with that going forward, but it just seems like maybe, it would help get more eyes on my channel and just create more variety of content so that people can see more than just my political takes and stuff here on my channel. So yeah, I sort of really don't know how to cover all the stuff that happened prior to me taking my break and everything like that. So we're just gonna sort of start sort of fresh today. And I just wanted to mention I got my little sticker here. I voted today. I did early in-person voting. If you have the option to do early in-person voting or early voting at all, then I highly recommend doing that. Otherwise, make sure you have a plan to vote on election day. Now today we are going to sort of do what we were doing previously, and we're going to talk about how the 2 campaigns are doing. But in this video, we're going to talk about it from the perspective of this being the end of the campaign, because it is these candidates are wrapping up their campaigns. So the stuff that we're going to see today, it's all coming from them as they wrap up their campaigns. You can view this as their closing statements. So literally, just because it's shorter, we're going to go ahead and talk about what the Trump campaign is up to. And I have to give a big shout out to Mike here from the Humanist Report for putting together this compilation of clips. This is from Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. If you don't know anything about this rally, just to give you the short of it, it's essentially a reenactment of a Nazi party rally that was held in the same location years and years before, I think 1939. And I'm not kidding, this whole rally was extremely disturbing, LARPy. It was it was modern neo-Nazi rally. It's all very disturbing, but this compilation of clips is just something to see. So we're going to go ahead and listen to that real quick.
And we have to defeat them. And when I say the enemy from within, the other side goes crazy, becomes a sound. Oh, how can he say? No, they've done very bad things to this country. They are indeed the enemy from within. But this is who we're fighting. I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act.
So the enemies from within kind of thing, I did want to mention that is something that Trump has started saying recently, which is an extreme dramatic turn in his rhetoric. Very recently, Trump was being asked about stuff in an interview, and he essentially said that foreign governments are an issue, but what's really an issue are these far left lunatics. And he even named Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, and said that these far left lunatics need to be taken care of or need to be dealt with. And then he even said, I think in the same interview later on, basically said we should use the National Guard or the military against the enemy within. An incredibly shocking thing to say. I mean, he has said very many shocking things over the course of his political career, but to essentially say that the American people are the enemy, and to say that he wants to use the military or the National Guard against the American people, what an incredible thing. And he said it multiple times. It was not a slip of the tongue or a misspeak or anything like that. There is a very clear intention here. And this is, at this point in this clip right here, is him quadrupling down on this. So the right-wing media sphere has been trying to spin this, has been trying to cover, has been trying to deny the meaning of what he is saying here. But I think that the meaning speaks for itself. It's very clear what he's saying is that, you know, he wants to go after his opponents, that he wants to go after people that disagree with him.
Of 1798, think of that. That's how far back. That's when they had law and order. They had some tough ones. Think of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. You hear that, Mr. Speaker? Get ready. But he's done a great job, and he's going to continue to do a great job, and we like him. He's a terrific person. I watched him just totally decapitate a fake reporter on NBC, Meet the Press, Meet the Fake Press.
She is the devil, whoever screamed that out. She is the Antichrist.
I would just like to give the art world a little something. I got it here somewhere. Oh, here it is. Bam!
We need to slaughter this other people. We need to bring 100 million votes to Donald Trump.
It's going to be pretty hard to look at us and say, you know what? Kamala Harris, she got 85 million votes because she's just so impressive. As the first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ, former California prosecutor ever to be elected president, it was just a groundswell of popular support. In a country that has been taken over by a leadership class that actually despises them and their values and their history and their culture and their customs, really hates them, to the point that it's trying to replace them.
Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. All right. Heck yeah. It's a cool black guy with a thing on his head. What the hell is that? A lampshade? Look at this guy. Oh, my goodness. Wow. I'm just kidding. That's one of my buddies. He had a Halloween party last night. We had fun. We carved watermelons together. It was awesome.
I just got back from Israel about 2 weeks ago. They love Trump in Israel, just so you know, they love him. They love him and Bibi, they love them both. I get back and they go, Sid, you want to speak at this MSG thing? I go, sure. Out of character for me to speak at a Nazi rally. I was just in Israel, but I took the gig. She is some sick bastard, that Hillary Clinton, huh? What a sick son of a bitch. The whole fucking party, a bunch of degenerates, lowlives, Jew haters, and lowlives. Every one of them. Every one of them. Look at my city.
And the Palestinians are taught to kill us at 2 years old. They won't let a Palestinian in Jordan. They won't let a Palestinian in Egypt. And Harris wants to bring them to you. They may have good people. I'm sorry, I don't take a risk.
They tried to jail him. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to imprison him. And they even tried to take his life with not one, but 2 assassination attempts.
Okay, so that rally was essentially Trump's closing statement to America, and everything that everyone saw from that rally was essentially just hate, lies, and deceptions, all meant to rile up a base in attempts to win this election. But I found that series of clips like really disturbing to listen to, because like you can just see the total like culmination of what they are talking about. Like it's just really clear when you hear it from all of their mouths, like what they're getting at. Like it's racism, it's bigotry, it's hatred. Like it's just an ignorance fueled campaign, and it's wild. Like that one guy saying that everyone on the left is like, what did he say? Everyone on the left, Jew haters, degenerates, lowlifes. Like, come on, my guy. Like, people are like, there's this story right now where everyone is mad because Biden, I think he honestly genuinely misspoke, and he said the only garbage, because talking about the Puerto Rico thing with the garbage, the only garbage I see are his supporters, is what he said. And I think he misspoke, but regardless, even if he didn't misspeak, even if that is what he meant to say and he ended up, walking it back or whatever, the right wing says significantly worse about the left wing all the time. They call us pedophiles, they call us groomers, they call us all sorts of really horrible things. So, you know, it's just it's something to think about. It's something to think about. If normies tuned into this rally, then I find it hard to believe that they would be able to stomach much of this without feeling like something is seriously wrong with what I'm watching. Like it is very far from good vibes. I will say that. But yeah, thanks to the Humanist Report for putting together that series of clips. I didn't really want to watch that entire rally, so I'm glad that I did not have to, and I was able to get the goods without having to pay the price, so to speak. So thank you very much for that, and we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next bit of content. We're gonna talk about Kamala's campaign here. So what we are going to be looking at for the Kamala campaign are essentially her closing remarks at a rally that she gave at the Ellipse, and this is essentially her closing statement. This is her last, you know, her last big speech before the election, and this is it. So let's go ahead and listen to what she has to say. Now, we're not going to listen to the whole thing because it's like almost 30 minutes or whatever, but I do have clips kind of marked out here on my little cheat sheet, and we're going to listen to those little sections and we'll talk about them and stuff. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and start near the beginning here. She just comes out spitting, so we're going to go ahead and start near the beginning. I have to apologize. There is like a siren or something going off in the background, and it does go away after a clip or two, but it's going to be there for a second, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Good on her for just speaking through it and not letting it bother her too much or whatever, but yeah, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and let her speak for a minute.
And it will probably be the most important vote you ever cast. And this election is more than just a choice between two parties and two different candidates. It is a choice about whether we have a country rooted in freedom for every American or ruled by chaos and division. Many of you watching have probably already cast your ballots. But I know many others are still considering who to vote for, or whether you'll vote at all. So tonight, I will speak to everyone about the choice and the stakes in this election. Look, we know who Donald Trump is. He is the person who stood at this very spot nearly 4 years ago and sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol to overturn the will of the people in a free and fair election. An election that he knew he lost. Americans died as a result of that attack. 140 law enforcement officers were injured because of that attack. And while Donald Trump sat in the White House watching as the violence unfolded on television, he was told by his staff that the mob wanted to kill his own vice president. And Donald Trump responded with 2 words: so what? America, that's who Donald Trump is. And that's who is asking you to give him another 4 years in the Oval Office. Not to focus on your problems, but to focus on his. And Donald Trump has told us his priorities for a second term. He has an enemies list of people he intends to prosecute. He says that one of his highest priorities is to set free the violent extremists who insulted those law enforcement officers on January 6th. Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within. America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power. Donald Trump has spent a decade trying to keep the American people divided and afraid of each other. That is who he is. But America, I am here tonight to say that is not who we are. That is not who we are.
So incredible start right there. Honestly, she came out of the gate spitting, just not really holding back with her attacks, making sure that she lays things out very plainly for people. I mean, like no notes. That was really good. Alrighty, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next clip here.
Co-workers, they are fellow Americans. And as Americans, we rise and fall together. America, for too long, we have been consumed with too much division, chaos, and mutual distrust. And it can be easy then to forget a simple truth. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. It is time to stop pointing fingers. We have to stop pointing fingers and start locking arms. It is time to turn the page on the drama and the conflict, the fear and division. It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next President of the United States of America.
Small point here. That is such a cool frame. They kept catching her in this frame where she would finish like a really strong statement and she would just like look strongly off into the distance. Like, wow, she looks so badass. I'm not gonna lie. So badass. Some boss bitch energy right there. Let's go ahead.
Now look, let me say, I recognize this has not been a typical campaign. Even though I've had the honor of serving as your vice president for the last 4 years, I know that many of you are still getting to know who I am. Well, let me tell you, I am someone who has spent most of my career outside of Washington, D.C., so I know that not all the good ideas come from here. I am not afraid of tough fights against bad actors and powerful interests.
So we watched that last clip specifically because she did the whole like turn the page thing and used that slogan, which she has been using for a minute now. And I don't think that it's really caught on all that well. She did get a decent response, but I don't think she got a response from the turn the page thing. I think she got a response from like the new generation of leadership line. I think that's what energized people in that last clip. I don't think it was the turn the page line. But I just wanted to show that because like that's something that like has been hurting her lately in the campaign, is that she started out her campaign with actually some really good messaging, the we're not going back and the weird stuff and all sorts of other stuff that they were doing early in the campaign. They were just very aggressive in going after the right wing and Trump and, their deceptive tactics and stuff like that. And I find it really disheartening that they spent such a long time after the DNC sort of switching modes and listening to these advisors and trying these lines that are like workshopped and focus studied or whatever. And they just don't really work. Like, I just don't think that these advisors really know what works on the ground because they're separated from that by being in the Capitol or wherever they are, All right, so we're going to go ahead and watch some more here.
So look, in less than 90 days, either Donald Trump or I will be in the Oval Office. Okay? On day one, if elected, Donald Trump would walk into that office with an enemies list. When elected, I will walk in with a to-do list full of priorities of what I will get done for the American people. And I will work with everyone, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, to help Americans who are working hard and still struggling to get ahead. I have been honored to serve as Joe Biden's vice president. But I will bring my own experiences and ideas to the Oval Office. My presidency will be different because the challenges we face are different. Our top priority as a nation 4 years ago was to end the pandemic and rescue the economy. Now, our biggest challenge is to lower costs that were rising even before the pandemic and that are still too high. I get it. I still remember our mother sitting at that yellow Formica table, late at night, cup of tea in hand, a pile of bills in front of her, trying to make it all work. And I've heard from so many of you who are facing even greater financial pressures. Donald Trump's answer to you is the same as it was the last time. Another $1 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires and big corporations. And this time, he will pay for it with a 20% national sales tax on everything you buy that is imported. Think about it. Clothes, food, toys, cell phones. A Trump sales tax that would cost the average family nearly $4,000 more a year. And on top of that, you will pay even more if Donald Trump finally gets his way and repeals the Affordable Care Act, which would throw millions of Americans off their health insurance and take us back to when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. Well, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back.
Okay, so that right there, I know that was sort of a long segment of clips. That was actually 2 segments of clips that I sort of just let run together. So the first section, the first thing I wanted to talk about was the day one thing she was talking about. Like, what would Trump do on day one? What will I do on day one? And in there, she specifically made sure to distance herself from the Biden administration in terms of saying, hey, you know, I'm different. I will have different things that I'm pursuing. The times are different. We have different problems that we're facing. So I will be a different president, and my presidency will be different from Biden's. So I was really glad to see her just like specifically say that. Like, she specifically made a point to say that. That meant a lot for me to hear personally. I think that there are a couple key issues where, you know, she really needs to separate herself from Biden. And I think that Biden is an unpopular politician. He's an unpopular president. So I think that separating herself as much as possible works in her favor. Just like entirely, like there's almost no downside. The second clip that I sort of like, like the second half of that clip, I guess, is essentially her going into like policy comparisons between her and Trump and discussing how Trump's policies will hurt America and her policies will help America. And in that discussion, or in that moment, she did the "we're not going back" thing. And I gotta say, the immediate reaction from the crowd with her saying that was so intense. Like, I know that earlier we saw the clip of her doing the turn the page thing, the workshopped, advisor sort of like thing that she's supposed to do. Not really much of an effect, not really much of a response from the crowd. But she does the "we're not going back" thing, and the crowd loses it. They love that. They love that because for a lot of people, that captures the feeling of this moment of like, we're on the precipice of being dragged back to an era of complete uncertainty. Waking up every day wondering what's going to happen with our country, what's going to happen in the White House, what's going to happen to our safeties, our protections, our civil liberties, all that stuff. So, I mean, you know, it's I think Roe versus Wade has made that very real. The overturning of that has made a lot of things very real for people where they weren't before. Like, it was all kind of hypothetical before, but then he got in power and he did something that really affects a lot of people in our country on a very, very profound level, on a health and safety level, which is incredibly important for us. You know, we should be focusing on making sure that everyone has access to good health care. And unfortunately, right now, women are not able to secure good health care when it comes to pregnancy care because of a lot of these issues around abortion and Roe versus Wade getting overturned. There are a lot of horror stories that if you've been paying attention to, you may be privy to. I won't get into them here. But yeah, so seeing her do the "we're not going back" thing, incredible. Incredible. And the policy comparisons, really clear. I mean, she's killing it. Like, she has improved pretty consistently in her speech giving. I mean, there have been moments where I feel like her speeches have gotten a little weaker. Now that I think is the influence of advisors and stuff like that. I think the stuff that she kind of created with her team and workshopped herself and stuff like that, I think all of it has been really good. And I think that she's really stepped up to the moment in terms of energy, in terms of rhetoric. I mean, there are some areas of disappointment, of course, especially and specifically talking about Gaza. But like, other than that, you know, I think that she has done a pretty good job domestically building up support, coming up with policies that actually will make a difference. Some of the policies that she's proposed are pretty massive, like the home health care thing. That's massive. I mean, that does not affect me. Like, that does not affect me at all in my current state in life, but it's something that I know will help a lot of people in America, people that are struggling with a lot of very serious issues. You know, they're trying to take care of a sick or elderly parent, and they're also dealing with financial issues because of the sick and elderly parent. So it's sort of like this horrible cycle, and there's a lot of negative outcomes that come from situations like that. So I am happy to see her taking a step to do something about it. And the reason why she wants to do something about it is because she cares about it, because it affected her in her personal life. So she has like this personal investment to like improve things for people. And it's so much more genuine than what you're seeing from what's going on the right. Okay, so I got 2 more clips to show you, and then we're going to jump into sort of a broader analysis of this.
And look, on another subject, politicians have got to stop treating immigration as an issue to scare up votes in an election, and instead treat it as the serious challenge that it is, that we must finally come together to solve. I will work with Democrats and Republicans to sign into law the border security bill that Donald Trump killed. When I was Attorney General of a border state, I saw the chaos and violence caused by transnational criminal organizations that I took on. And when I am president, we will quickly remove those who arrive here unlawfully, prosecute the cartels, and give Border Patrol the support they so desperately need. At the same time, we must acknowledge we are a nation of immigrants. And I will work with Congress to pass immigration reform, including an earned path to citizenship for hardworking immigrants like farm workers and our dreamers. As Commander-in-Chief.
So she's going to go on to talk about the military and how she has respect for the military, and how Trump has insulted a lot of, people in the military, and he, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, Trump is a draft dodger, all sorts of stuff. So, that's a good comparison to make between her and Trump, as for sure, definitely for sure there. But yeah, the stuff on immigration, the first half of that, I was sort of like, oh, okay, she's really gonna put this in her closing statement, I guess. Cool. I guess cool. Not really. I mean, so the border bill, there were some good things in that bill, but there were also some incredibly bad things in that bill. It was an incredibly conservative bill. And I think the thing about immigration that Democrats really need to take hold of is the idea, like, we need to focus on America being the melting pot again. We need to focus on immigration being an important part of America, because it is. It's incredibly important, despite what the right wing will tell you. But it's also important to recognize that, like, our immigration system is pretty broken. Like, the path to citizenship has not really been there, and it's not really been accessible, and it's not really been something that's done in a timely manner in a long time. It sort of has, like, the process sort of just broke down over the years, due to lack of funding and all sorts of other stuff, increased immigration due to just higher population, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, all sorts of things have led to the situation that we're in. And it is a serious issue, but it's not the issue in the sense that, like, we need to get rid of all these people. We need to stop what's happening, because actually these people coming in are helping our country. They help us economically, and they contribute a lot more than they take from us, which is, I hate even using that framing, because, like, it's not really, it doesn't work that way. You know, like, they are members of society, and a lot of these people that come across the border end up working really hard for really low wages. They pay into a tax system that they're not getting anything out of. And the path to citizenship is long and arduous. And honestly, a lot of these people, you know, seriously earn it. They really do earn it through hardship and having to go through this whole really ridiculous process in order to achieve citizenship. But we cannot kowtow to the right wing in their framing and how, like, you know, like, we need to stem the tide of illegal immigrants and caravans of immigrants and the illegals and deportations and all that stuff. We cannot, we can't give that, like, an inch. Like, we really can't. Like, of course, we already deport people that are, you know, like, here illegally, that commit crimes and stuff like that. There's already stuff like that happening, and sure, maybe there could be a little more funding for it, but cracking down on deportations and stuff like that, that is the last thing we need. What we need is to fix the immigration system so that people have a pathway to citizenship. So even though she did kowtow a bit to the right-wing framing there, and she promised to pass a bill that I don't think should be passed, it's good to see that she started including rhetoric about America being a nation of immigrants and about how it's important for us to have pathways to citizenship, because these people contribute so much to our society. It's important. It's something that we should take seriously. All right, so I rambled long enough about that. We're going to go ahead and go look at the last clip here.
More chaos, more division, and policies that help those at the very top and hurt everyone else. I offer a different path, and I ask for your vote. And here is my pledge to you. I pledge to seek common ground and common sense solutions to make your life better. I am not looking to score political points. I am looking to make progress. I pledge to listen to experts, to those who will be impacted by the decisions I make, and to people who disagree with me. Unlike Donald Trump, I don't believe people who disagree with me are the enemy. He wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at the table. I pledge to you to approach my work with the joy and optimism that comes from making a difference in people's lives. And I pledge to be a president for all Americans.
Okay, so that was a pretty short clip, I know, but I just thought that line, people that disagree with him, he wants to lock them up. People that disagree with me, I want to give them a seat at the table. I thought that was so powerful. Like, I thought that was so powerful. I just really liked that line, so I just wanted to show that. It also really targets that enemy from within rhetoric. Again, it brings attention to Trump having brought up, oh, the enemy's from within. We gotta send the National Guard, the military, we gotta lock them up, all that stuff. It really focuses on how, like, extreme that is, and sort of says, like, hey, shouldn't we just be having discussions here? Shouldn't we be having healthy debates? During this speech, she does say at some point, like, she loves debate, she loves discussion. But what we have seen over the past, 8 years or whatever, is not healthy debate or discussion. It's like insanity. So those are just the clips that I wanted to show. You know, I think the whole speech is pretty good. There are some periods where, you know, sort of just like some rhetoric or whatever, sort of just like your standard speech stuff. Like, I don't know, like those were the exciting moments for me, or the notable moments for me. But, you know, go ahead and give the whole thing a listen. I think it's worth listening to, especially here leading up to the election. As we get closer to the election, you know, within this last week or so, it's good to kind of get like a feel of like what are they pitching me? What is the sales pitch in the final moments here? Like what are they really leading with at the end of their campaign? What is the message? You know, they've had time to workshop, to meet with voters, to campaign, to rally, to do all this stuff, interviews, media, all that stuff. So where have they landed throughout that whole process? And I think that the development of Kamala's campaign has been really good to see. I've seen pressure make a difference in her campaign in a short amount of time. She has responded to pressure, and responded not even to just pressure, but like to strategies that aren't working. Like we talked about the whole like turn the page thing, didn't really get too much excitement from the crowd. And then she did the whole we're not going back thing. I bet there's some advisor backstage somewhere who got mad that she did that or something. But I think that she felt like, hey, it works, I'm gonna do it. And so hopefully, like, this is just me wish casting 100%, I'm not gonna lie, but like it would be really amazing if Kamala viewed that moment as like, hey, you know, I listened to these advisors, and this is a clear example of like what the advisors told me to do in this speech did not work. What I felt like I should do, you know, the we're not going back thing, it worked. And so I think maybe it'll give her this confidence to realize that like she doesn't need to listen to establishment advisors to understand good politicking. Like she is a good politician. I think that her political instincts themselves are good. I think that she just kind of maybe listens a little too much behind the scenes to people who don't have such great ideas, and then that causes her to, you know, maybe go off in directions that aren't so great. But yeah, overall it was a great speech. There were some really powerful moments, and like her standing at the podium, you know, like looking off into the distance all strong, like that was super cool. I really would love to get like a poster of that or something. I'm not gonna lie, like that's pretty sick. I mean, that being said, you know, maybe she won't be such an amazing president. Maybe she will be an amazing president. We have no idea if she'll even win or not. And that is kind of where we need to go with the conversation now, because this race is something that no one can predict. There are way too many factors. I mean, you have to consider that like the presidential race is already something where we have an extremely small sample size. And so because there's such a small sample size of, you know, presidential races and presidents and stuff like that, especially with how many complicating factors there are this election cycle, there's too much. Anyone that tells you that there's a way to decide how this election is going to go is just wrong. Everything that I've seen points to there being like a 3 or 4 point lead by Harris nationally. And now if you consider the Electoral College, where Republicans tend to have a sort of an edge there, then that means that it's probably more like a 50-50 race. And maybe I'm wrong. Like it could be a landslide, you know, for either direction. Who knows? We have no idea. But there are certain trends and certain statistics you can look at. And I'm not feeling too terrible about the election. I do feel like there is probably a slight lead nationally with Harris. I feel like, you know, people are kind of getting sick of Trump. I'm not gonna lie, there was sort of some novelty there. He's very charismatic, and there was sort of like this energy with him and stuff. And I think, you know, it sort of made people pay attention whether they agreed with him or not. But as time has worn on, I think sort of like people have seen behind the curtain, and they sort of get what's going on there. And there are some people who are still really enamored by him, but I think that people who really pay attention to what's going on, they're not feeling it anymore. But that, whether that really makes a difference or not, I'm not really sure. I have one more clip I want to show you. So this is a video from David Pakman. He interviewed this lady right here, and she works in political analysis, like electoral forecasting and stuff like that. And she gave a very salient point here. I was watching this interview, and I just wanted to share this with you because I think that after, you know, I consume a lot of news content, like I consume a lot of political content. If you watch my show, I guarantee you watch a lot of political content because I'm an extremely small YouTuber. You know, even if you're just watching my content, you're watching a lot of political content. Like, I know it doesn't seem like a very high bar to set, but like, if you are tuned in at all, then you are like, let's just watch this. Let's just watch this. Okay. Let's just watch this.
Passed, and I'm waiting with, data. It takes time for all that to be processed, but we'll be looking again. I had Tom Bonnier from Target Smart, which your audience probably is familiar with, Tom and Simon Rosenberg, pulled the registration data a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, just tell me this one answer. I just want to know this. If their theory of the case is that they're going to motivate more men than ever to come and vote Trump, then they have to have there should be a boom in registrations for men. Okay. And it's not there. It wasn't there in the initial run of data. And I can't say for sure it's not going to be there until I get this second, run of the analysis after registration is closed, right? It's closed now. But my guess is it's not going to be there, guys. And the reason is when Steve Bannon told Donald Trump, don't worry about suburban women, we can win this election without them. I was like, oh, as a trained political scientist, I'm like, oh, so your theory is you're going to get people who don't vote to show up and vote. Well, you have fun with that, because that is the hardest thing in electoral politics to do. Half of the country, again, half of our fellow citizens, when you're in the mall, maybe not if you live in LA or San Fran or some major city, okay? But if you live anywhere else, you go into a mall, half the people you walk by do not vote. They don't vote and they don't care. And they're proud of not voting. Okay? Yes. And then when you get to the 50% that do vote, most of them have no idea that John Kelly called Trump a fascist, and they'll never hear it unless we get saturation news coverage and everyone pounds on it for 2 weeks, okay? Right. They're never going to hear it. So that's the reality of the electorate. It is perfectly capable in this moment with that propaganda machine. And, we only got modest change. The Harris campaign is running good strategy. They've been running, picked it up from Joe Biden. They've kept it going. And, they're making sure to bring voters up to speed on the crazy and try to build this big tent, because we're trying to get Republicans to vote against brand loyalty. It's very hard to do, right? But down ballot, a lot of the races have run old strategy. And here's the thing, it's like, okay, we're on the cusp of collapsing into fascism. Most of the country, that pit in the stomach that you have, I have, your audience has, that's gotten worse every day and will be almost like, undealable next week, right? That is not something that your average American at your kid's soccer practice has, dude. They don't even know that. They won't know until it's all happening. And then they're going to be like, oh, holy shit, what happened? Like, what do you mean that, the newspapers all have to sign up with a ministry of truth?
Okay, so I wanted to share that clip because it is incredibly grounding and incredibly important to center that framing as we approach this election. I think there's a lot of people like me who are tuned in who don't understand why this race can be as close as it is, considering that the candidates are who they are and they're running the campaigns that they're running. Like, I just think that you have like literally Hitler 2.0 running a neo-Nazi campaign threatening to actually destroy democracy. Like he's not even like vaguely threatening this. Like, he wants to persecute people, wants to deport 20 million people, which is an impossible feat. It would destroy our economy. It would cost untold amounts of money. And then you have Kamala, who's running as sort of like a, I don't know, sort of like an establishment Democrat with some, some okay, decent policy in there. She's got some decent charisma and stuff like that. But she's running an honest campaign where she seems like she wants to do stuff to try to help the American people. And so when you pay close attention like I do, and you see these two campaigns and you see how they're acting and you see all the stuff going on, it makes you wonder, like, how could this be such a close race? Like, how can this be a coin flip? It doesn't make any sense. Anyone with half of a brain would realize that, like, the Trump presidency will make the country worse. And in every regard, it'll make the country worse. And a Harris presidency will make the country better. And it's like, I almost wish it were more complicated than that, because then, it would maybe be a little more of an interesting discussion. But I swear, it's like, it's that simple. Like, do you want someone who's going to make your life harder, more expensive, and fuel more hate and more, like hate crimes will go up again and all sorts of other stuff? Like, there's so many effects of a Trump presidency, not to just mention the fact that, like, there are legitimately people within his administration that want to dismantle the administrative state and sort of just like turn the country into like cyberpunk style run by corporations kind of thing. It's just like this horrible, it's like Plato's cave analogy or allegory or whatever you want to call it. Maybe you've seen this, maybe you haven't. Essentially, it's this thing a philosopher wrote a long time ago where he's talking about people in caves. They're staring at shadows on the walls, and they've never seen the real world. They've never been outside the cave. And eventually one of the people breaks free they leave the cave, they see the real world, and they go back in the cave and try to explain to the people staring at the shadows on the walls that like, that's not the real world. The real world is the real world out there. And all the people staring at the shadows are just like, what? You're crazy. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, but like, have you seen these shadows? They look pretty real to me. I mean, like, it looks like the real world. It's just like, it's an impossible feat to understand where people are once you have left that frame of view. Like, once you've left that frame of reference. Like, I pay too much attention to politics, and so it is impossible for me to understand the median voter at a fundamental level. Now, can I kind of intellectually understand where the median voter is and create empathy and try to like, understand their situation and their position from an outside point of view? Yes, I can try to do that. And I certainly do try to do that. But it would be silly for me to think that I can actually put myself in the shoes of the median voter, because the median voter, most of their politics are insane. They don't make sense. Half the country does not vote and they do not care. And the other half of the country, it's like vibes. Like they see like a couple of news stories that they don't even read. They just sort of like maybe hear something on the news as they're walking out the door. Like it's just like their politics are created not by intentionality, but by accident. And so oftentimes it's a chaotic mess of whatever they've been told by people that they trust in their life. And like people like me, people that are watching me, it's like 1% of the population, right? Like you've got like 49% of the population, 50% of the population doesn't vote, doesn't care. 49% do vote, but it's like vibe space. And then you've got like 1% of the population that like actually pays attention. So, I mean, really, like that's the reason why this race is so close, because it's like team sports. And for most median voters, like they are viewing this like, I gotta get my team the points. And, maybe on the Democratic side, you have more people kind of considering the seriousness of this race and maybe voting more on an issue basis and stuff like that. But I think that a lot of people are voting out of party loyalty, especially I think on the Republican side. So I don't know. It's really going to be a matter of turnout. This election is a matter of turnout. It's a turnout election. Whichever side turns out more, people will win. And that's just sort of the nature of it. So that's going to bring me to the end of my show for today. I'm still recovering from being sick. So again, I apologize that I sound so sniffly or stuffy or whatever. Not really much I can do about that, but hopefully it gets better soon. Like I do feel pretty much better already. So on Saturday, I'm going to try to put out a video about transition related stuff or personal related stuff, or I don't know. I'm just going to try to make a different kind of video other than politics. Maybe try to do politics once a week and then do something else once a week. But yeah, let me know like what kind of topics you would be interested in hearing from me. I've thought about talking about voice training, and I've thought about talking about, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to really sit down and like hammer out some specific videos, but like voice training was something I thought about talking about because I didn't really talk about it too much in my 1-year transition video. And that was something that some people pointed out to me, is that they were like, hey, your voice sounds pretty good. And it kind of didn't really mention voice training at all. Now, I know my voice doesn't sound very good right now, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I will try to be back on Saturday with another video. If you watched this video, thank you so much for sticking around. I appreciate you. I love to see all the new subscribers still coming in from the 1-year transition timeline video. So like super appreciate all the support that I've been getting on that video, from that video and stuff like that. I would love for people to help support me so that I can grow as a content creator, because doing this full time would be pretty awesome if I could talk about politics and transgender issues and transition and all sorts of other stuff just like full time. That would be pretty sick. That would be something that I would be super interested in doing. If you want to help me get towards the 1,000 subscriber mark, I would love that so much. Hit that subscribe button. That would mean a lot to me. Hit the like button too while you're there. And if you want to leave a comment down below, like let me know who you think's going to win the election. I mean, I know that like it's pretty much impossible to predict, but like basically like what's your gut telling you? Like what's your instinct kind of telling you? Because my instinct is telling me that like Harris is slightly likely to win, but it could go either way just based on, a bunch of random chaotic factors that probably have nothing to do with what the politicians are saying. It's just like someone gets bored standing in line and they decide to leave, and that makes a difference in the election or something, like there are all these factors, and yeah, that's just sort of the way it is. But yeah, I'm incredibly nervous for this election coming up. I really don't want to have to like flee the country or anything like that, but being a transgender American right now is incredibly scary. I will say seeing so many attack ads against transgender people right now is sort of a bad omen for Republicans. Republicans, because the last time they tried that, the last time they led with transgender attack ads, it did not work out. It actually worked against them quite heavily. A lot of people reported in, a lot of the polling, a lot of stuff like that said that, you know, people didn't want to hear about it. They thought it was kind of cruel and unusual and just like weird to talk about people so much in a political stage and stuff like that. And also, you know, people that ran on transgender issues primarily like as one of their big issues, they lost their elections in 2022. Like that was part of the reason why the red wave was like so suppressed in 2022 during those midterms, is because the Republican Party put such a heavy emphasis on like transgender issues, and it just was not a good issue for them to run on. So anyway, I'm gonna get out of here and get this video edited. It might be up quite late tonight. I don't really know if I'm gonna get it up tonight or if I'm just gonna have it out tomorrow. I'm not really sure. But either way, thank you so much for watching. If you got this far, I appreciate you greatly. And yeah, we'll see how this election goes. I will be back with more politics next week. So until next time, do me one little tiny favor. Remember to stay hydrated.